Western allies have moved towards supplying armored battle vehicles to Ukraine, but not the heavier tanks it has requested to fight Russia since the invasion back in February last year. This comes as Washington predicted intense combat would continue for months on the eastern front line. French President Emmanuel Macron told Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that his government would send light AMX-10RC armored combat vehicles to help its war effort, a French official said on Wednesday after a phone call between the two leaders. While the official said these would be the first Western armored vehicles delivered to Ukraine, Australia said in October that it had given Kyiv 90 of its Bushmaster protected mobility vehicles, an armored unit that is hardened against landmines, small arms fire, and other threats. Later on Wednesday, U.S. President Joe Biden said that Washington was considering sending Bradley fighting vehicles to Ukraine, a country that, since Russia's invasion in February 2022, has been fighting Europe's biggest land conflict since 1945. Cities have been destroyed, millions of people displaced, and tens of thousands killed. With its powerful gun, the Bradley armored vehicle has been a U.S. Army staple to carry troops around battlefields since the mid-1980s. The U.S. Army has thousands of Bradleys, and they would give Ukraine more firepower on the battlefield and strengthen its ability in trench warfare. Taiwan detained 3 active duty officers and a retired Air Force officer suspected of spying for China, the Central News Agency in Taipei reported, a case that hints at the extent of Beijing's snooping on its much smaller neighbor. The former officer left the military in 2013 and started doing business in China, where he was recruited to build an espionage ring, the semi-official media outlet said, without saying where it got the information. Prosecutors suspect he recruited 6 officers and was paid between 200,000 new Taiwan dollars, $6,510, and 700,000 new Taiwan dollars via a shell company, CNA reported late Wednesday. He and 3 officers serving in the Air Force and Navy were detained in the southern city of Kaohsiung, and 3 other active officers were freed on bail. Taiwan has struggled to weed out espionage within its military by China, which has vastly more resources. The U.S., Taiwan's biggest military backer, has long been worried about the self-ruled island's ability to keep tech and other secrets out of Beijing's hands. Taiwan's defense ministry said in November that China's spying posed a serious threat. Those comments came as authorities launched an investigation into an infantry officer for allegedly taking 40,000 new Taiwan dollars a month from China to gather intelligence and surrender if a war ever broke out, CNA earlier reported. The spying problem affects the highest levels of Taiwan's military. Former Vice Defense Minister Chang Cheh-ping, once Taiwan's 3rd most important military official, was investigated in 2021 due to concern about contact with a Chinese spy ring. He was cleared and became a witness in a case that led to the indictments on spy charges in June of a retired general and lieutenant colonel. The U.S. is stepping up its military support for Taiwan, which last year detected some 1,700 warplane incursions into a sensitive air defense identification zone and more than 660 ships in nearby waters. U.S. lawmakers in December agreed to a $1.7 trillion spending bill that permits up to $10 billion in arms sales to Taiwan. The Ukrainian armed forces have attacked a Russian military base in the occupied town of Vasylivka, Zaporizhia Oblast, the Ukrainian government's Center for Strategic Communications, or Stratcom, said on Telegram on January 4th. The agency also posted footage from the scene. Russians converted a local hotel into their base. The strike caused significant damage to the building and its partial collapse. No information about enemy losses has been reported yet. Earlier on January 1st, the Stratcom reported that the Ukrainian military hit the building of vocational school number 19 in Russia-occupied Vasylivka late on December 31st, just during Russian dictator Vladimir Putin's speech with New Year greetings. Around 400 Russian soldiers were reportedly killed and another 300 were wounded in the strike. The Russian Ministry of Defense acknowledged the strike, claiming that 4 of the 6 rockets killed several dozen Russians. The Russian Navy commissioned 3 new vessels, including a Boreas-class nuclear ballistic missile submarine, to close out 2022. In addition to the 3 new vessels, Project 955, a Boreas-class submarine Generalissimus Suvorov, Project 12700 Alexandrit-class MCM ship Anatoly Shlemov, Project 21631 Bayanem-class Grad. A second submarine was also rolled out of the shipyard hall at Sevmash shipyard on the same day. Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu attended the events via video. The K-553 Generalissimus Suvorov strategic nuclear-powered submarine of Project 955, a Boreas, assigned to the 25th Submarine Division based in Vilyachinsk, is expected to have the most effect on the fleet. It will join 3 other Boreas-class submarines in the Pacific Fleet. The Generalissimus Suvorov is the 6th Project 955 Boreas boomer overall and the 3rd of the Boreas version. The first 3 of the submarines used hull sections from unfinished Project 971 Shtuka-B submarines. However, Project 955 version is already hydrodynamically optimized. It has taken approximately 8 years for the submarine to commission. The keel of the Suvorov was laid down on December 26, 2014, at the Sevmash shipyard in Severodvinsk, northern Russia. On July 20, 2022, Suvorov began factory acceptance trials at sea. On November 3, the submarine launched a 3M-30 Bulava submarine-launched ballistic missile from an underwater position in the White Sea as part of government testing, which dropped on the Kara firing range in Kamchatka. On December 21, Suvorov was handed over to the Russian Navy. It commissioned 8 days later in Severodvinsk and began service in the Pacific Fleet. This year, the submarine will be transferred to the Far East via the northern route. On the same day, a ceremony was held at Sevmash to roll out another submarine in the class, Emperor Alexander III. Construction of the boat began on December 18, 2015, and the Russians plan to commission the boomer later this year.